Welcome to the Teacher Fellows podcast. My name is Ryan Rarick. I am an education pathway teacher and instructional coach in Washington County School District. As always, I am joined by my colleague, friend, and the 2020 Utah Teacher of the Year, Lauren Merkley. Lauren, how are things going right now?
It's like almost 70 degrees today, so they're going great. I have spring fever.
Yeah, I have it as well. I'm excited about the changing season, and I literally have it from allergies that are popping out. So that's
double
fun and
whammy, a double
exciting.
dose.
Yeah. Take a minute for some personal privilege. I have to share some exciting news. I passed my dissertation proposal defense on Monday. I am stoked, and I wanted to give that personal privilege because that ties into the topic of what we're going to talk about today, which is teacher leadership and continuous professional development. We have a couple of guests that are going to talk about something near and dear to our hearts. We're going to talk about the Utah Teacher Fellows Program. So for our audience, as a brief refresher, the Utah Teacher Fellows is a nonpartisan organization that empowers teachers to take the lead in education. The 2-year fellowship equips teachers with the skills and opportunities to lead in education, understand and affect policy, and amplify the voice of teachers. We're thrilled to have 2 teacher fellows with us today, Christyn, Kendrick, and Cheryl, Jindeel. Lauren, both you and I have done this teacher fellowship, and then we've stayed on in a leadership capacity. Before I have you give us our guest bios, what has it meant to you to be a member of the Teacher Fellows?
I think for me, the Teacher Fellows answered this question. Question's maybe the wrong word, but this question that I had, and I think a lot of teachers have, which is, I'm loving what I'm doing in my classroom, but what more is there for me without having to move into administration? How could I have a bigger impact, or how could I use my skills for a broader scope of problems or issues without having to leave the classroom? And so for me, I think that's what Teacher Fellows did, was gave me a bunch of chances to do that, helped trained me in leadership and communication and all these things that helped me see how I could have a broader influence beyond my classroom without totally leaving it. What would you say?
The same thing. That's one of the biggest challenges in teaching, is figuring out ways to grow as a professional without having to leave the classroom, and just building a network of people that are inspiring, who are like-minded, and who are out to solve some problems and generate some solutions is really inspirational, and probably one of the best things I've ever done as an educator. So anyway, with that as the intro, Lauren, why don't you give us a little background on our 2 guests, and let's get into a conversation with them.
With great pleasure. So for a little bit of additional context, these are 2 fellows who are at the end of their 2-year fellowship. So they've been with the Utah Teachers Fellow 2 academic years. And first we have Cheryl, shout out Granite School District, teaches social studies at Granger High in Granite and has been in education for 15 years, including the last 5 in Utah. She's a retired Army veteran originally from Michigan, who brings a global perspective and passion for innovation to her classroom, where she designs student-centered, real-world learning experiences that connect history, civics, and current events. She's especially passionate about educational equity, integrating technology to support multilingual learners, and building collaborative learning communities. Joining her is Christyn, Kendrick, who has been impacting education for over 18 years. We have 2 veteran teachers on here, which I also think is important to note. Utah Teacher Fellows teachers can be in any stage of the career, but here we have 2 really experienced teachers that are going to talk to us. Christyn is a former elementary school teacher who is now an instructional coach. She's taught in both Cache and Box Elder counties. She is driven to promote the everyday classroom scenarios that are often overlooked and strives to remind teachers, students, and other faculty members of what they are achieving. So, Cheryl and Christyn, thank you so much for giving us a few minutes of your time today.
Yes, it's a pleasure.
Okay, a quick refresher if anybody's new. I am so excited, Lauren, with the growth of the podcast. I don't know if this has happened to you, but I've had multiple people contact me, tell me that they've listened to the podcast, including one of my PhD professors, Dr. Allison Levine from Utah State, sent me a text last night asking for the link for applications for the Teacher Fellows program, also the link for the podcast, and she shared it with her class. So any of Dr. Levine's students, if you're listening to this episode, welcome. We're excited to have you. Our format for our podcast is a 5-minute intro, which we're near the end of now. Then our guest interviews takes the bulk of the time, and Lauren and I will finish with our final thoughts. So without further ado, let's get into this conversation. So Cheryl and Christyn, as you consider your experience with the Teacher Fellows, let's go back to the beginning. And our first question is, what led you here? How did you hear about the Teacher Fellows and what made you decide to apply?
This is a great question because it's definitely something that is out of my comfort zone. I am up here in a just rural Box Elder County corner of life. When the Utah Teacher Fellows was an idea in my mind, I thought, this isn't for me. I didn't feel great about expanding my wings. Luckily, I was mentored when I taught over in Cache County by one of the prior cohort's Teacher Fellows. His name is Jeremy Smith, and let me give him an amazing shout out. We still stay in great contact, and he is, I might get a little emotional. He is my biggest cheerleader. He is my biggest fan. Within your first 3 years of teaching, you receive a mentor here in Utah. Jeremy was that mentor for me as I was a first-year teacher. He saw something within me that he continued to bring out in me. Jeremy is just an amazing example of a great leader. He continued to encourage me to pursue opportunities that weren't comfortable to me. It's easy to stay comfortable, right? It's hard to stretch and grow. For years, he would approach me every time. He would let me know that I needed to pursue this opportunity, that he thought I had something valuable to offer, to start the conversations in a more rural area of Utah, just about education in general. Also promoting my own leadership skills that he saw within me. I was honored that he kept pestering me, but it did feel like a bit of a pester. And then finally, I took that pester and I ran with the application process. And it was remarkable. Part of the application process was getting some letters of recommendation, some feedback from other people. I reached out to different people. Jeremy himself wrote me some recommendations. It's always nice to read their words about you and to feel honored as an educator, but a person. That is my long story short. I had no idea this even existed until Jeremy brought it into my realm, and then I pursued it, and I have loved every single minute.
I love that. One of the things that ties into the early episodes of this podcast, so the first couple of seasons, Audryn Dameron was the co-host with me, and we interviewed all of the fellows about their teacher journey, like what led them into the classroom. You touched on one of the common themes, which was there was a champion. There was somebody that saw something and then made a comment like, hey, you'd be good at this. Sometimes it was a teacher in a classroom. Sometimes it was somebody who wasn't even in the education profession. Like Audryn's example herself was she was a lifeguard and she helped a student with disabilities learn how to swim. Somebody was like, you should look into doing that professionally. So having a mentor, like you just mentioned, Christyn, nudge you into that direction gives you that confidence. Cheryl, what about you? What got you into here?
I was following some people before I came to Utah on social media, and I just kept seeing posts and more posts about the Utah Teacher Fellows program. Some of them were people that I really admired, people like John and Kira and Deborah, and they were like rock stars in Utah education. At least that was the feeling before I got here, that they were trying to do something meaningful and they were advocating for their students and really trying to lead change with their voice. After I got here, I kept seeing them for a couple of years on social media. I don't know, it's just like I was missing something, kind of like what Lauren talked about, that like-minded people. It's not that my colleagues weren't really doing that, because I mean, they were, but a lot of people were still burned out from COVID because I got here right at the end when we were coming back to school. And they just weren't engaging at that level. I really didn't see myself as a leader in education, even though I've been a leader in other areas of my life. I knew I just wanted to grow and be part of something bigger, so I took a shot and applied. I think really it was that I wanted to learn from those people that I was admiring from afar and try to figure out how to be that same kind of leader.
That's perfect. I actually love the kind of disparate experiences we have here. Like Christyn, it was someone very close to her that had known her for years, really guiding her and ushering her through this process. And for Cheryl, it was admiring these people actually from quite a ways away, even not in the state, and seeing even at a distance what this meant. A phrase that you said, Cheryl, I think is probably a very common refrain among Utah Teacher Fellows, is that you said, I didn't see myself as a leader in education. I think if you asked every Teacher Fellow alum or current fellow, if they saw themselves as a leader before they applied, they would say no. I mean, I even think I wouldn't have known exactly what that phrase meant, really, until I had been in the program. I want to come back to that idea, but thank you for saying that. I think it's very honest and very common for our listeners. So once you apply, there's an application process, there's a selection process. 20 fellows are selected, and these fellows form a cohort that is together for 2 years. There's in-person, essentially, conferences called convenings. There's webinars. We spend time on Capitol Hill. We're working on projects with the Utah State Board of Education and really getting training in teacher leadership. That looks a lot of different ways. So I was hoping that the two of you could talk to us a little bit about, here we are, you're wrapping up your second year of the fellowship, the final year of the fellowship. How would you say that you have grown? If we didn't see ourselves as a leader in the beginning, how has that grown or changed in the 2 years? Use the word leader or growth in the most expansive, broad way possible.
To be part of the Utah Teacher Fellows, I think that kind of showed me that leadership could start with where I was at. I didn't have to be in the administration or at the district level. It was just what I was doing already. It helped me see that I could be a leader just beyond my classroom. I didn't have to step way out that I could do with like in my school and stuff. I think it gave me confidence to apply this last year to some national organizations and some opportunities out there that I would not have seen myself as doing. So that's a big one. Educator Day on the Hill, talking to the legislators. That was a big step outside my comfort zone, especially the first year. I was in my head the whole time, but I pushed through and I did it. I actually met with all the legislators at that time that represented me and my students, and I invited them to my school the week after session got over. I think that's where I really saw myself as a leader. I invited them to come, but it was really the students who got to interact and ask questions. Seeing them step up and be heard by people in power, I think was so amazing, not just for me, but for them. I think that is leadership, giving them those opportunities. I'd say the other thing, just talking publicly about education, presenting at USET, that was a big step outside my comfort zone, and that really helped me grow. The program helped me grow in that.
Oh, Cheryl, I was just writing things down as you talked. That was such a beautiful answer. I want to say ditto to everything Cheryl just said, but I know it's the hook. But really, my experience, I did have to leave the classroom to lead out. In fact, like going back several years, gosh, I don't even know how long I've really been a coach. When I was actually asked and encouraged to apply as an instructional coach, I remember that first time that I went to an interview to be an instructional coach to try to lead out and help other teachers and mentor them. I sobbed the entire interview because I was not ready to leave my classroom and did not get the job. They had a box of tissues they kept shoving towards me. I wasn't ready at that time. And then once again, I don't know, people around me are champions. And when positions would open up, they'd always say, you need to apply for this. You need to do this. We need you here. We need you here. Things like that. So I took the leap and applied again, and I was selected. I believe here in Box Elder District, they really value instructional coaching. Every elementary school, in fact, has an instructional coach assigned to just that one elementary school, and that's pretty rare. Lots of times, instructional coaching is shared between multiple schools in an elementary. So anyway, they've really valued that. I feel valued as an employee here doing instructional coaching, but I had to give up was me. Do you know what I mean? As a teacher to do that. But it's so rewarding in other ways. I'm in classrooms every day. I'm teaching alongside teachers. I'm linking arms with them every day. It's just different, not having your own classroom. However, this fellowship in particular has changed the way I have viewed teacher leadership in the way I coach other teachers. My eyes have been open to that. As other mentors and teachers and leaders in my own districts were championing for me, I need to do that same thing for brand new teachers. A lot of my job I spend with teachers within their first 3 years. I am a mentor to them. And so I've realized the direction I can now take them is to advocate, is to be a teacher leader. They come with such an energy and passion within their first 3 years. I don't want them to lose if they will stay strong with that and build upon that and not shrink to veteran teachers or whatever, knowing that they have something vital to share and important for them to continue to grow as a leader. They are still a leader. Like any teacher can be a leader. It doesn't matter how long you have taught. So I feel like the direction
of my coaching has changed with brand new teachers through this fellowship. I think some of that comes through the confidence that I've gained in myself. This sounds really terrible because those people hired me as an instructional coach, but I'm the type of a person that doesn't just demonstrate great confidence going into all things. I have that mindset that I want to learn from others as well. So when I'm expected to be that leader or that consultant in a way, sometimes I get intimidated by that. I definitely have felt some imposter syndrome in the Teacher Fellows program. I am surrounded by amazing educators, teachers of the year, like all these people receiving awards. I'm honored to be a piece of it because I don't put myself in that category where all of you are. It's just helped me to gain a little more confidence as well that I hopefully can pass on to those new teachers so they don't ever shrink to the hardships of teaching.
There's so much from both of your responses right there. I noticed a couple of times you and I, on some of their comments, we both reached for our pens at the same time to make the same note. I want to address that. Christyn, you said the phrase exactly there at the end when you mentioned imposter syndrome, but something that stood out, Cheryl, from what you mentioned is joining the fellowship helped you realize that leadership could start from where you were at, and it didn't have to be some external thing or some extra thing. The phrasing I use is you could lead from within. That's, I think often we think of leaders at the front. They don't have to be. They could be in the middle. They could be doing the work and demonstrate leadership. And Christyn, that sounds like that's what you're also trying to do with the teachers that you coach, is to create that mindset. But I want to go to that concept of imposter syndrome. And Lauren, I don't want to speak for you, but I know that I had the exact same experience that they just explained when I walked into my first Teacher Fellows meeting, and I'm seeing everybody, and literally I'm like, do I belong here? I wore a 3-piece suit on the first day because I was like, if I don't belong here because of my teaching and abilities, I'm going to look like I belong here no matter what. That's what I did. Actually, John Arthur came up and complimented me on how nicely I was dressed. So I was like, yes, this part worked. Cheryl and Christyn, my question for you is, what helped you overcome or work through that imposter syndrome?
I have to say, it was all of you. That network of people, the connections that I've been able to make from the most northernest end of Utah all the way to the most southern. From east to west, we are all over the state of Utah. I have lasting connections. It's not just a one and done, once a fellow, always a fellow. I feel that. I feel valued. I feel that it's an authentic connection that I would be able to reach out to any of you at any day. We are there for each other. It's almost a climate and a culture within our convenings and within the structure of how the Utah Teacher Fellows has come together that continues cohort to cohort. Even meeting with Jeremy, meeting people outside of his cohort, I feel like I have a connection with his cohort as well. And some have stayed on in the Teacher Fellows, but there are people that I've met in prior cohorts just being a part of it. I believe it's really just that network of people that I now have.
I'd say something similar. Don't get me wrong, I still have imposter syndrome a little bit, but the same thing. Being in the Teacher Fellows and being surrounded by all these people who have done so much, but knowing that I can start where I'm at and where I'm comfortable, and being able to do that in my school, I think that was like the first step for me to break through that feeling. I was elected to a position at the school, which I would never have even applied for before Teacher Fellows. So knowing that the people that I work with have that sense of belonging or like that leadership, they see that in me. I think that was a really first step for me, I would say, past that imposter syndrome, is that network within my school and the support that they gave me to be a leader.
That's great. That circles back to somebody believing in you and nudging you in the right direction. And with Christyn, what you said, like, it's ironic that the people that you're around that may be causing the imposter syndrome are the same people that help you to get through it. Our time's winding down on this interview, but Lauren, do you want to ask one final question to get one last thing out of Christyn and Cheryl?
So as the fellowship is drawing to a close, what is one, nugget or one skill or one thing that you're taking from this fellowship into your next school year specifically? Is there a skill? Is there a goal? Is there something from the fellowship that you're really focusing on as you leave the formal fellowship that you're taking with you?
Part of the fellowship has just opened up doors and opportunities for me that I don't feel I would have had normally being a teacher in Box Elder School District. I feel like maybe it's my location, but we're the end of the pipeline. We just hear things and then go and do. Now I feel like I almost have a front row seat to some of the opportunities coming up as far as the ESL conference that's coming up for teachers within their first 5 years. I applied to be a mentor for that. So now my scope and sequence of opportunities has broadened, and I feel more confident to put in an application to become a mentor to other teachers throughout the entire state. And I'm excited for that opportunity. And once again, it's not just teachers within my district, it is statewide. I'm excited to make that a goal, and I hope to continue that as well.
Perfect. Cheryl, what are you taking with you into this next school year?
What I think I'm taking with me into the next school year is maybe the ability to push myself out of my comfort zone, to really think big in how I can help my student in the big picture. I teach at a school that is probably 70% multilingual, and being able to advocate for those students on a bigger level.
Beautiful.
I love both of the takeaways right there, and so much more that we could talk about right now. But as we transition into the conclusion of the podcast, Lauren, what's one big takeaway that you got from what Cheryl and Christyn shared with us today?
I just want to underscore, it's a takeaway, but I really want to amplify what both of the fellows have said, which is this thing about imposter syndrome. I used to think that people who presented at big conferences or spoke to legislators on Capitol Hill or wrote articles, I used to think that sort of given them permission. I don't think I actually thought this, but it seemed someone gave them permission to do that, or they have passed some test that I don't know that exists, and therefore they get to present at national conferences or whatever. And I really think my experience in the fellows showed me no, Lauren, those are just people who did it. They're just people who applied. They're just people who said yes. They're just people who sent an article to the Tribune and said, will you publish this? They are not people that have powered by some invisible body to be leaders. I really had to come to this realization that people out there doing things, ironically, a program like the fellows that actually trains you in those skills is the thing that made me realize those are just people who put themselves out there in a visible way. I just think for any of our listeners who are feeling I couldn't write an op-ed for the paper, or how would I even present to the I just can guarantee you the people who are doing that are like the fellows and the hosts of this podcast. We're not podcasters. We just said, let's have a podcast. Are just out there doing things and trying things. I think that's such a beautiful and encouraging and democratizing way to think about being a leader. I think these two fellows really underscored that.
Yeah, I'd echo that as well. I love how you frame that, Lauren. You'd always hear somebody should do this or somebody should write that. And it's it's just the person who decides to do it, not somebody that's elected to it or whatever. It's not really a takeaway, but the last little bit that I want to share is just some more logistical information for people. If anybody listening to this is considering joining the fellowship in the next round of applications, which I think this episode will actually come out after our current round closes, so it would be a couple of years from now, but the time commitment it's not overwhelming, and what you gain from it pays itself back tenfold. So there's a couple of in-person convenings per year, there's a webinar once a month, and then there's typically a couple of projects that we work on throughout the 2 years that I call it peaks and valleys. There might be a time where we're really busy and other times where we're mostly just maintaining communication with each other. I also want to throw this shout out. There's only 20 spots available for the Teacher Fellows, so there's going to be excellent teachers that apply that aren't selected. We are also expanding into districts. There's the Cache District has a fellowship, the Davis District has a fellowship, and I think there's a couple others that I'm forgetting right now. But look for opportunities to do these types of things. And even if you feel like you don't belong, that's how all of us felt. You'll belong because you're there. You'll build off of the strength of other people, and the whole is greater than the sum of its parts. That's my final takeaway, is what you gain from it is far more than anything that you put into it. You don't have to feel like you belong. You don't have to arrive at the mountaintop to then decide to go on the hike. Like, you start the hike at the bottom and you figure it out as you go along the way. That's it for the podcast today. Thank you again to Cheryl and Christyn for joining us, and to all of you for listening to us. Please continue to listen and spread the word to others as well. You can subscribe to our podcast on Spotify, Google Play, Apple Music, Stitcher, or any other podcast platform. Check us out on Instagram for our breakout videos as well. We produce episodes every month. This podcast was produced by Kayla Towner. For my co-host, Lauren Merkley, this is Ryan Rarick. Thanks for listening, everybody.